So imagine this. You spend 20 years building a business, saving diligently, investing smart. You finally cross that $1 million mark in net worth. You feel like you have made it, right? And then one day, someone rear-ends your teenager at a stoplight. A lawsuit gets filed. And suddenly, every single thing you have worked for, your house, your retirement accounts, your kid's college fund, all of it is on the table because you never thought about asset protection. Look, I get it. When you are busy building wealth, the last thing you want to think about is what happens when someone tries to take it away. But here is the brutal reality. The more assets you accumulate, the bigger the target on your back becomes. And most people, even smart, financially savvy people, are walking around completely exposed. My name is Leo, and I spend way too much time thinking about how wealthy families can protect everything they have built from lawsuits, creditors, and financial catastrophes. If you are someone who has worked incredibly hard to build wealth but you are terrified that one mistake or one lawsuit could wipe it all out, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here is the thing. Most people think asset protection is something only billionaires need to worry about. You know, offshore accounts, fancy trusts, teams of lawyers. But the truth is, once you cross about $1 million in net worth, you enter this incredibly dangerous zone where you have enough assets to be worth suing, but probably not enough legal protection in place to actually defend yourself. And the statistics here are genuinely terrifying. According to recent data from the Insurance Information Institute, approximately 53% of Americans with over $1 million in assets have zero formal asset protection strategies beyond basic insurance. Zero. And here is what most people do not realize. The average personal injury lawsuit settlement in the United States is about $54,000. But here is where it gets really scary. If you are perceived as wealthy, plaintiffs' attorneys are far more likely to pursue larger settlements because they know you can pay. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Leo, I have got good insurance. I have got homeowners insurance. I have got auto insurance. I have got an umbrella policy. I am covered, right? Not exactly. Insurance is absolutely part of the equation, but it is not the whole solution. Insurance companies will fight to pay as little as possible. They have coverage limits. And there are entire categories of liability that standard insurance just does not cover at all. So today, I am going to walk you through 3 legal shields that every family with over $1 million in assets needs to have in place. These are not exotic strategies. These are not sketchy loopholes. These are legitimate, time-tested structures that wealthy families have used for decades to protect what they have built. And the best part, most of these can be set up for a few $1,000s, which is nothing compared to what you could lose without them. Alright, shield number 1. The Revocable Living Trust. Now, here is where I need to be really clear about something because there is massive confusion about what trusts actually do. A revocable living trust is primarily an estate planning tool. It helps you avoid probate. It keeps your financial affairs private. It makes transferring assets after you die much smoother. But, and this is critical, a revocable living trust by itself does not protect your assets from lawsuits or creditors during your lifetime. So why am I including it as shield number 1? Because it is the foundation. Think of it like this. Before you can build a secure house, you need to pour a solid foundation. A revocable living trust is that foundation. It organizes your assets, it clarifies ownership, and most importantly, it sets you up to add additional layers of protection on top of it. Here is the math that makes this make sense. Probate, which is the legal process your estate goes through when you die without a trust, typically costs between 3 and 7% of your total estate value. If you have got $1.5 million in assets, that is $45,000 to $105,000 in probate costs alone. Plus, probate is public record. Anyone can see exactly what you own and who got what. For a family trying to maintain privacy and protect wealth across generations, that is a disaster. A revocable living trust solves this by transferring ownership of your assets from you as an individual to you as the trustee of your trust. You still have complete control. You can buy, sell, modify anything you want. But legally, the trust owns the assets, not you personally. And when you die, the trust does not die. The assets simply transfer to your successor trustee and then to your beneficiaries without going through probate. Now here is what most people do not realize. Once you have this foundation in place, you can start adding real asset protection by creating irrevocable trusts for specific purposes. But you have got to get the revocable trust set up first. It is like trying to install a security system before you have even built the walls of your house. You need the structure first. Shield number 2. Umbrella liability insurance. And look, I know insurance is not sexy. I know it is boring. But this is probably the single most cost-effective asset protection strategy available to you, and almost nobody has enough of it. Here is the scenario that keeps me up at night. Let's say you cause a serious car accident. You are at fault. Someone is permanently injured. Your auto insurance has a $300,000 liability limit, but the lawsuit is for $2 million. Guess where that extra $1.7 million comes from? Your personal assets, your house, your investment accounts, your retirement savings, everything. And here is the thing that drives me crazy. An umbrella policy with $2 million in coverage typically costs between $300 and $600 per year. Let me say that again. You can protect yourself against multi-million-dollar lawsuits for about $50 a month. The fact that more than half of millionaires do not have this in place is genuinely insane to me. Now, how much umbrella coverage do you actually need? Here is my general rule. You want coverage equal to your net worth, rounded up to the next million. So if you have got 1.3 million in assets, get to million in umbrella coverage. If you have got 3.8 million, get 5 million in coverage. The cost does not increase that dramatically as you go up in coverage amounts either. According to data from the Insurance Information Institute, going from 1 million to 5 million in umbrella coverage typically only adds about $200 to $400 per year in additional premiums. Think about that. For the price of a nice dinner out once a month, you can protect your entire life's work from a catastrophic lawsuit. But here is where umbrella insurance falls short, and this is critical. Umbrella policies only cover accidental liability. They do not cover intentional acts. They do not cover business liability if you own a company. They do not cover professional malpractice. And they do not protect you from creditors if your business fails or if you personally guarantee loans. This is why you need shield number 3. Shield number 3. The Limited Liability Company, or LLC. And this is where we get into real asset protection. This is the shield that actually creates a legal barrier between you personally and your assets. Here is how an LLC works. When you form an LLC and transfer assets into it, the LLC becomes a separate legal entity. If someone sues the LLC, they can go after what is inside the LLC, but they cannot touch your personal assets outside of it. And in many states, if someone sues you personally, they cannot easily get to the assets held inside your LLC either. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. LLCs are incredibly versatile. You can use them to hold rental properties, investment accounts, business interests, even expensive personal property like cars or boats. And you can set up multiple LLCs to compartmentalize risk. Let me give you a concrete example. Let's say you own 3 rental properties worth about $400,000 each. If you own all 3 properties in your personal name, and someone slips and falls at one property and sues you, all 3 properties are at risk, plus all your other personal assets. But if you own each property in a separate LLC, a lawsuit related to property 1 can only go after the assets in LLC number 1. Properties 2 and 3, and all your other personal assets, are protected. Here is the math. Setting up an LLC typically costs between $500 and $2,000 depending on your state and whether you use an attorney or an online service. Annual maintenance, including state fees and a registered agent, usually runs about $300 to $800 per LLC. So for about $1,500 upfront and maybe $600 a year, you can create a legal fortress around a $400,000 asset. That is a no-brainer. Now, here is what most people do not realize about LLCs. The level of protection you get varies dramatically by state. Some states like Wyoming, Nevada, and Delaware have very strong LLC protections. Other states have much weaker protections. And this is where it gets complicated because you generally want to form your LLC in the state where the asset is located, especially for real estate. But there is a specific type of LLC structure that gives you even stronger protection. It is called a series LLC. Now, not every state allows these, but in states that do, a series LLC lets you create multiple internal series, kind of like separate compartments within one LLC. Each series can hold different assets and has its own liability protection, but you only have to pay for one LLC formation and one annual filing. So instead of forming 3 separate LLCs for 3 rental properties and paying 3 times the setup costs and 3 times the annual fees, You form one series LLC with 3 internal series. You get the same compartmentalized protection, but at a fraction of the cost. For someone with multiple rental properties or business ventures, this can save thousands of dollars a year. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Leo, this all sounds great in theory, but is not this complicated? Do not I need expensive attorneys? Is not this just for rich people? Look, I get the hesitation, but here is the reality. The legal fees to defend yourself in even a simple lawsuit will cost you way more than setting up these protections in advance. According to the American Bar Association, the average cost to defend a personal injury lawsuit through trial is between $50,000 and $100,000. And that is just the legal fees. That is not including any settlement or judgment. So when you look at spending maybe $5,000 to $10,000 total to set up all 3 of these shields, it is not expensive. It is the cheapest insurance policy you will ever buy. And here is the thing about working with attorneys. Yes, you want a good estate planning attorney to set up your trust. Yes, you want someone who understands asset protection to structure your LLCs correctly. But you do not need to spend $50,000 on this. A competent attorney can set up a revocable living trust for about $1,500 to $3,000. LLC formation runs about $500 to $1,500 per entity. This is not out of reach for families with over $1 million in assets. Now let's talk about the psychology here, because this is where most people mess up. There is this weird mental block that happens when you start building serious wealth. You worked hard for it. You feel like you earned it. And there is this subconscious belief that nothing bad is going to happen because you are a good person who does not do anything reckless. But here is what behavioral economists call the optimism bias. We systematically underestimate the likelihood of negative events happening to us personally, even when we know statistically they happen to people all the time. You see other people getting sued, you see other people losing their assets, but you think, that would not happen to me. I am careful. I am responsible. The data shows this clearly. A study by the Insurance Research Council found that about 40% of wealthy individuals admit they procrastinate on estate planning and asset protection because they do not think they will need it anytime soon. They know they should do it. They just keep pushing it off. And then something happens. A lawsuit, a business failure, a divorce, and suddenly it is too late. Here is the brutal truth. You cannot set up asset protection after you are sued. Courts will see right through that. It is called a fraudulent transfer, and judges will just unwind the whole thing. Asset protection only works if you put it in place before you need it. It is like trying to buy fire insurance while your house is burning. No one is going to sell it to you. So let's talk about what it actually costs to do nothing. And I mean the real cost, not just the financial cost, but the emotional and psychological cost. Because here's what happens when you get sued and you are not protected. First, there is the immediate financial hit. Legal fees start piling up immediately. Even if you have insurance, there are deductibles, there are coverage limits, there are exclusions. You are looking at tens of thousands of dollars out of pocket before the case even goes anywhere. And that is assuming you have insurance that covers the claim at all. But the financial cost is actually not even the worst part. It is the stress. It is lying awake at 3 in the morning wondering if you are going to lose your house. It is the constant anxiety about every dollar you spend because you do not know what the judgment might be. It is the strain on your marriage because financial stress is the #1 cause of divorce. I have talked to people who have gone through this, and they all say the same thing. They wish they had spent the time and money to protect themselves when they had the chance. Because once you are in it, once the lawsuit is filed, you are just in survival mode. You are not building wealth anymore. You are just trying not to lose everything. So here is what you need to do. And I mean actually do, not just think about doing. Not just add to your mental list of things you will get around to eventually. You need to take action on this in the next 30 days. Step 1. Schedule a consultation with an estate planning attorney in your state. Not next month. Not when things slow down. This week. Most attorneys offer free initial consultations. Go in, tell them your situation, and get a quote for setting up a revocable living trust. This is your foundation. Step 2. Call your insurance agent and ask about umbrella liability coverage. Tell them you want a quote for coverage equal to your net worth rounded up to the next million. This should take one phone call and maybe 15 minutes. And it is probably going to cost you less than your monthly cell phone bill. Step 3. Make a list of all your high-risk assets. Rental properties, business interests, anything where liability could arise. Then talk to an attorney about whether you need LLCs to protect those assets. Do not try to DIY this part. LLC laws vary by state, and you want to make sure you are setting these up correctly. Here is the timeline I want you to follow. Week 1, schedule attorney consultations and insurance reviews. Week 2, get quotes and make decisions. Week 3, start the paperwork. Week 4, sign documents and fund your structures. 1 month. That is it. 1 month to put in place protections that could save you everything you have ever worked for. Now, some of you are probably thinking, Leo, is not this kind of paranoid? I have been fine for years without any of this. Why would I start worrying about it now? And look, I get it. There is something uncomfortable about planning for worst-case scenarios. It feels negative. It feels like you are inviting bad energy or whatever. But here is the thing. Asset protection is not about being paranoid. It is about being prepared. It is about recognizing that you have built something valuable, and valuable things need to be protected. You lock your doors at night, right? You do not think that is paranoid. You insure your house. You insure your car. This is just the next level of that same basic prudence, and the statistics back this up. According to various legal studies, roughly 1 in 4 Americans will be involved in a lawsuit at some point in their lifetime. If you are a business owner, the odds go up. If you own rental properties, the odds go up. If you have teenage drivers, the odds go up. This is not some remote possibility. This is a real, quantifiable risk. Here is something else that does not get talked about enough. Asset protection is not just about protecting you. It is about protecting generational wealth. If you do this right, the structures you put in place now can protect your kids and grandkids for decades after you are gone. When you set up a properly structured trust, you can include provisions that protect your beneficiaries from their own bad decisions, from divorces, from creditors, from lawsuits. You can set it up so that even after you die and your kids inherit, the assets stay protected inside the trust structure. That is generational wealth planning. Think about this. Let's say you leave your daughter $500,000 in your will. She gets divorced 2 years later. In most states, inherited assets are separate property and should not be divided in a divorce. But if she has commingled those assets with marital assets, if she has deposited them in a joint account or used them to buy a house with her spouse, they become marital property. And now half of your legacy goes to your ex-son-in-law. But if you leave that same $500,000 in a properly structured trust with your daughter as the beneficiary, the assets stay in the trust. She can receive distributions for her needs, but the principal remains protected. Her ex-spouse has no claim to it. Her creditors have no claim to it. You have protected your legacy. Look, here is the bottom line. If you have worked hard enough to accumulate over $1 million in assets, you have already done the hard part. You have built wealth in a world that makes that incredibly difficult. You have saved when others spent. You have invested when others were too scared. You have made sacrifices that most people are not willing to make. Do not let one mistake, one accident, one lawsuit take all of that away from you. Do not be the person who says, I wish I had done this 5 years ago. Do not be the person who loses their house because they did not want to spend a few $1,000s on legal protection. The 3 shields we talked about today, a revocable living trust, umbrella liability insurance, and strategic LLC structures. These are not complicated. They are not exotic. They are basic prudent financial planning for anyone who has built real wealth. And the cost to put them in place is rounding error compared to what you could lose without them. So here is your homework. I am serious about this. Take out your phone right now and put 3 reminders in your calendar. 1 for scheduling an attorney consultation, 1 for calling your insurance agent, and 1 for 30 days from now to check in with yourself and make sure you actually followed through. Because here is what I know about the people who watch these videos. You are not average. You are not content with mediocrity. You are someone who takes action. You are someone who does the hard work that others are not willing to do. And protecting your wealth is just another form of that same discipline. If this video helped you understand why asset protection matters and what specific steps you need to take, hit that thumbs up button. It helps more people find this information. And if you want more content about building, protecting, and transferring wealth intelligently, subscribe to the channel because we dive deep into this stuff every single week. I am Leo, and I will see you in the next one.